I often get questions about how to get started on wireframing a project. I want to show you a method that makes it easy to build a cohesive product where every component, every pixel on the screen supports the goals and structure of the product. This process works for any app, website, or desktop application, anything that runs on a screen. Every new project begins with the designer staring at an empty screen. How can I be creative? How can I fit all the parts needed together? This can be a bit terrifying, even for an experienced designer. I'll show you how I start. Oh, I need an example. I saw a sample design posted for critique. A design student had created a hero page. It looked a lot like this. If you think of the archetype of a hero page, he did it all. A circle with an image in it, and then some information underneath. For the visual design, he spent a long time searching for inspiration and decided on this lotus flower. To appear unique and creative, he added some artistic brush strokes. There is no thought to how his artistry relates to the usability. This is a very typical way to start a project. Get a basic template from a UI kit and make it pretty. Take a moment now to notice your own thoughts about how you would go about designing a hero page. This design wizard technique starts very differently. At every step, the focus is on helping users achieve goals, rather than just designing pages. I start with a single artboard that summarizes the project. The first steps build the core structure. Then after that, the process continues, adding more and more detail with each step. The goal is to build the wireframes from a core set of components. The entire process is fast and easy once you get the hang of it. This first artboard represents the full product. This is the tip of the pyramid structure. I am choosing a smartphone size to draw an artboard in Adobe XD. It doesn't really matter which one. In a future video, I will explain why to design the smallest version first. I type a general description on each card that defines what I need to know at each level of the process. I use a handwritten font to make it clear that these are the goals and definitions rather than a part of the final wireframes. The first artboard starts with the product promise, a short summary of what your product is providing for the user. Normally, this information would come from the product specification. This demo is for a meditation timer app with a focus on the hero page. I've made some basic decisions here, and there are a lot of unknowns, which is common early in many projects. The application framework generally goes around the edges of the screen. It includes the navigation and menus, the tools, and the other things that the application provides to help the user achieve the product promise. The content area is where the action takes place. In an application like Adobe XD, the content area is this region where I create the wireframes. In other apps, it might be the news feed, or in a shopping app, it would be where the user browses for something to purchase. I draw 3 artboards for the application framework, the main content, and another for the settings. This division works for any application that runs on a screen. I've used it for complex interactive television designs, websites, smartphone apps, and everything in between. On the application framework artboard, I start with a general description of what needs to be on every page, one part for the global components, and then the information about the layout of the content area. The first category here is for the global components, the things that go on every page. This first pass, I want to list the things in general terms. The details will come later. Think about what needs to be on every page of the product. There needs to be a default background for the app. It can be as simple as a color, or it can be something more complex. If there are any requirements, write it down. If not, just note that this needs to be done. For the wireframes, it will start very neutral, and I will add to this definition as I discover artistic elements that may enhance usability. The specification says I need to have a title on each page, navigation cues, and the company logo. I make a note that I need to decide what type of navigation is right for the product. That is what I know right now. Now for the global layout. The content also will need a global structure, even if each of the sections will be quite different. The user needs to identify the content area and where to start. How can I provide this in a global way? It starts with the basic page layout, what parts are reserved for the application framework, and which parts of the screen will be for content. I make a note to ask engineering if they are using something like React or Bootstrap. If so, that will define the type of grid that I will use. Also, I need a list of other things that need to be on every page. For this project, I will not need to reserve space for advertisements. You see, this is very basic text. There is a description of what needs to be done for the global structure. This process helps you to recognize when things are missing from the specification. Simply make a note of the decisions that you need. That is enough for this artboard, so I can move to the main content artboard. While the app is running, the screen will display the application framework, the content area, and elements specific to the section or page. On the artboard defining the content, I'll create a subtitle for each of these three parts: framework, content area, and page specifics. The framework will mainly be components defined back on the application framework artboard. On the other artboards, I just need to make notes of anything I should customize for this section. I need to remember to customize the page title to remind the user the purpose of the page. The middle section is for the content area. Design is about providing solutions, so I add a goal for the page when I can. The initial goal for the main content of the product might be as simple as to provide the user with the main features of the product. Then I list how this section will deliver on the goal. Here it basically is a list of the features: a home or landing page, a meditation timer, some tips about meditation, and some personalized statistics. At this point, this is not a list of pages. It is a list of the content that is needed. The page specifics area is to keep track of things that might need special attention for every page in the content section. I also make note that each of the main functions need to be represented in the navigation. Now to the settings artboard. This area starts relatively empty. If the specification calls for a login screen, it would go here. As the structure grows, I will add things here as I encounter them. This technique methodically defines the core structure and rules for the product, much like a design system. As with an outline, I start with the big topics, then keep filling in the details. Once I have a complete definition, I can build the wireframe for a component. The most used components are designed first. In Adobe XD, this also means that changes later on are easy to update throughout the product. Another video, I'll explain how this builds a visual language for your product. Looking at the global framework artboard, I can see that I don't have enough information to start the wireframes yet. I need to know more about the main sections of my product. When I look at the list on the main content artboard, I can see that each of the 4 features have significantly different content, and there is no obvious way to group them. So these become the 4 main areas of the content. The main navigation always links to the main sections of the product. For a small app like this meditation timer, these sections can be a single view or artboard. A section of a larger product can expand to many artboards, or even to many subsections, each with multiple artboards. Regardless, the navigation will point to the main sections. The first content artboard is the parent. I then made 4 child artboards where I can add more details. The 4 parts of the content are the home or landing page, the meditation timer, a section for supplementary information about meditation, and a page for personal statistics. I also made a copy of the artboard for settings and one for the application framework so that I can add items to these lists when needed. Using the same headings as before, I filled in a goal and what needs to be included in the product so the user can achieve the goal for that section. I filled in the information for all the new content pages: the home screen, the meditation timer, and meditation tips. Here is how I filled in the personal statistics page. For the global framework heading, I made a note to customize the header component to show the page's title. For the content area, the goal for this page is to reinforce that the user is making progress. To fulfill this goal, there will be a user image and a summary about the user's meditation experience. I also make a note that this page will benefit from some extra attention to the visual design. This will help to reinforce the goals. Initially, the meditation summary will include the count of the meditation sessions and the time spent meditating. As I wrote this, I realized that there needs to be a link to more details about the meditation history. This type of information should be in the product specification document. Yet details like this are often overlooked until late into the development process. It's important to make note of any usability ideas you have to make sure that important details have not been forgotten. Under the Page Specifics heading, I like to make note of how a user usually gets to a screen. This is particularly useful when you begin to review the wireframes later on in the design process. This screen is always available from the main navigation, and a link to this content could be a feature on the home screen as well. How will the user add a hero image? What will be displayed here until the user uploads an image? If this has not been defined yet, make a quick note of your implementation ideas. While you are deep in the design process, it is easy to come up with good solutions that you can present at the next design meeting. For example, a click on the image triggers a sequence to add a new user image. I make a note of this over on the settings page. Should this be a single click or a double click? The number of clicks or taps needed to trigger an action should be consistent throughout the product. At first, I record the need for these decisions over on the Global Framework Artboard or in a design document. The final decision is deferred until you have mapped out enough of the structure to inform which decisions will work for all the situations that fit the pattern. That is, when you can see where else the user will need to access settings or trigger a sequence while using the product. There needs to be a dedicated button to get to the meditation history. I make a note over in the Application Framework Artboard that there needs to be a global rule or solution for this type of link. Then I make a few more notes about the meditation history. This should already be in the product specification, but if it is not, I would make notes such as what statistics should be tracked. Do we need to access a view for each meditation session? Do we need user research to determine which features meditators expect or want? Then I need to coordinate with engineering on what is possible and the technical details that might affect the design. Now that I've finished the 4 content artboards, take a look at the type of details that I added to the settings artboard. The Design Wizard process makes it easy to see how everything relates across the product and what I need for each entry when I am ready to design this part of the product. Here is the updated Global Application Framework Artboard. The text in purple has been added while I was filling in the content artboards. I now have a complete list of the main sections for navigation and a list of special purpose, reusable components, and the start of a list for the global usability rules. At this point, you can begin to see how this method makes it easy to design with both the full product and the details at the same time. This approach helps the designer to create reusable components and to create simple global rules. This helps users to feel familiar with the interface and also makes the product easier to design, program, and maintain. Now the core structure of the application is solid. Even if there are the inevitable changes in the future, this structure can handle it. Rather than designing a page, I am designing a cohesive application. You can see that I now have enough information to begin transforming these global text descriptions into the global components. I took the list of items that need to appear on each page and arranged them on the application framework area to appear at the top and bottom of the screen. I chose to put the titles, logo, and back button icon on the header or top app bar, and then on the bottom navigation bar are icons to access the main sections of the app. After designing these components, I decided there needs to be a visual difference between the application framework and the content. In the bland wireframe, I use a color difference to indicate this is important. This is an example of how the visual design supports the usability. After I added the global components to each page, I customized each using the list that I had for changes to the global components. And then I deleted the descriptive text that was in that handwriting font. I saved the Adobe XD document with the text-only descriptions separately from the copy that I used to create the actual wireframes. This way I can replace the text with the components as I progress with the wireframe version. The descriptive, text-only version becomes the record of the design process. I use it to make sure the wireframes and the final designs are complete and fulfill the goals of each artboard. They can also be valuable in explaining my decisions in meetings and to show how the inevitable change requests will impact the integrity of the product. After building the structure and mapping out the meditation timer app, I'm fully prepared to design the wireframe for the user statistics. Looking at this artboard, I can see exactly what needs to be done on this page. I am also aware of how all the parts of the screen relate to the bigger product. The wireframe for this page has the global components in place. Using the familiar archetype for a hero page, I added a large circle and an area for the statistics. I realized that having a bit of gradient running under the image can visually connect the photo with the statistics. Before prototyping the visual design, I focus initially on the ways that the visual design can enhance the usability. As I was working, it occurred to me that using a similar gradient on the meditation timer page could create a strong visual continuity. I make a note to investigate using a round timer with the background gradient that reflects the design of the meditation timer page. This design method makes it easy to see patterns so that your finished product has many visual and structural interconnections, which are hallmarks of a truly professional design, as well as a boon to usability. From this point on, the process continues as the designer adds more and more artboards and details until there is enough information to create a component to replace each text description. It is easy to add artistic flourishes for demos when the inevitable last-minute request comes in. Here is a more finished visual treatment on top of the wireframe. I can quickly create a very different look on top of the same wireframe. I made a change to the background color and switched the graphic around the photo. Now compare this with the original student image based just on the archetype of the hero page. The design wizard process dramatically changes how your brain approaches the early stages of wireframing a project. It is a series of small steps that result in a cohesive product where every element, every pixel, supports the goals and the structure of the product. That statement sounds crazy complicated to those who are unfamiliar with this technique. The magical secret is that all the interconnectedness emerges spontaneously when you use this design wizard process. To see more episodes of A Design Wizard's Guide, please like, subscribe, and if you would, please share this episode with others.